I still can't believe it happened. To this day, the memory is a visceral punch to the gut, a cold dread that washes over me whenever I close my eyes. My wife, the love of my life, was violated, and the man who did it thought he could get away with it. He thought he was untouchable, but he wasn't, not when it came to me. What would you do if someone laid a hand on the person you cherish most? Would you sit back and let the system handle it, or would you take matters into your own hands? Tell me honestly, was I wrong for what I did? Because what followed wasn't just revenge. It became a global spectacle, and I was at the center of it all. Let me take you back to where it all began. It was a beautiful, crisp autumn evening, the kind that makes you want to snuggle up with a warm blanket and a good book. My wife, Sarah, and I had just celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary. We were blissfully happy, living in a cozy little house in the suburbs, our lives perfectly intertwined. Sarah was a kindergarten teacher, her days filled with the laughter and innocent chaos of small children. She had this incredible warmth about her, a kindness that radiated from her very core. Everyone loved Sarah. She was the kind of person who would go out of her way to help a stranger, who always saw the best in people, sometimes to her own detriment. I, on the other hand, was a software engineer, spending my days immersed in lines of code, a stark contrast to Sarah's vibrant world. But we balanced each other perfectly. She brought color and joy into my structured life, and I provided a sense of stability and unwavering protection for her. Our evenings often consisted of us cooking together, sharing stories from our day, and sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence, enjoying each other's presence. This particular evening, however, was different. Sarah had a late parent-teacher conference, so I was home alone, preparing dinner. The air was filled with the aroma of garlic and herbs as I chopped vegetables, humming to myself. I remember looking at the clock, wondering when she'd be home. She usually called or texted if she was going to be really late. But that night, there was nothing. A small knot of worry began to form in my stomach, one that I tried to dismiss as irrational. Sarah was a grown woman, capable and independent. Around 8 p.m., my phone finally rang. It wasn't Sarah. It was Detective Miller, a name I only knew from local news reports about petty crimes. His voice was grim, devoid of the usual police officer stoicism. "Mr. Peterson," he began, "I'm calling about your wife, Sarah Peterson. There's been an incident." My heart plummeted to my stomach. "Is she okay?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper. He hesitated, and in that agonizing pause, my worst fears began to solidify. "She's at St. Jude's Hospital. She's been assaulted." The world around me spun. The knife slipped from my hand, clattering against the counter. Assaulted? Sarah, my Sarah. It felt like a cruel joke, a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I raced to the hospital, my mind a whirlwind of terror and disbelief. The drive was a blur of flashing streetlights and desperate prayers. When I finally saw her, lying in that sterile white bed, a bruise blossoming on her cheek, her eyes swollen and red, a rage unlike anything I had ever known consumed me. It was a cold, searing fire that threatened to burn through my very soul. She was quiet, withdrawn, her usual vibrant spirit dimmed by an unspeakable trauma. She eventually told me what happened, her voice trembling, punctuated by gasps and tears. After her conference, she was walking to her car in the dimly lit school parking lot. That's when he appeared, a man, tall and menacing, seemingly out of nowhere. He grabbed her, covering her mouth, dragging her into the shadows behind a dumpster. She fought, of course. Sarah was a fighter, but he was stronger. He pushed her against the wall, his hands roaming, invading her personal space, violating her. She managed to knee him, giving her a momentary chance to scream and break free, running back towards the school, where she found a night janitor who immediately called the police. She was physically bruised, yes, but the emotional scars, I knew, would run far deeper. The police had a description, vague as it was, and a few blurred security camera images from the school entrance, but nothing concrete. No name, no clear face, just a monster lurking in the shadows. The next few weeks were a living hell. Sarah was terrified to leave the house, jumpy at every sudden noise. Her sunny disposition was replaced by a haunted look in her eyes. I tried everything to comfort her, to make her feel safe again, but I felt utterly helpless. The police investigation seemed to crawl at a snail's pace. Every day I called Detective Miller, desperate for news, for any shred of hope that this monster would be caught. But each call ended with the same disheartening message: no leads. The perpetrator had vanished into thin air. The injustice of it all gnawed at me. My wife, a woman who only ever spread kindness, was suffering, and the man responsible was out there, free, possibly even planning his next attack. I felt an overwhelming urge to protect her, to bring her assailant to justice, even if the official channels seemed incapable. I started doing my own digging. I took the blurred images from the school and enhanced them with software I developed myself, trying to bring out any identifiable features. I frequented online forums, searching for similar incidents in our area, looking for patterns, anything that could lead me to him. I became obsessed, fueled by my love for Sarah and the burning desire for retribution. My work suffered, my sleep was minimal, and my once calm demeanor was replaced by a simmering anger. Sarah worried about me, urging me to let it go, to trust the police, but I couldn't. Not when she was still afraid to walk alone in her own home. I remembered Sarah mentioning a distinctive tattoo on the man's forearm, a swirling black design. It was a small detail, but it was something. I cross-referenced it with local tattoo parlors, with online databases, any lead I could find. It was a needle in a haystack, but I was determined to find that needle. One evening, about 2 months after the attack, I was browsing through a local community Facebook group, a place where people posted about lost pets, garage sales, and occasionally local news. A post popped up, seemingly innocuous, about a man causing a disturbance at a local bar. The accompanying photo, taken from a distance, showed a man being escorted out by bouncers. My eyes immediately honed in on his arm. Even in the grainy photo, I could make out the unmistakable swirling black tattoo. It was him, my breath caught in my throat. This was it. This was the monster who had terrorized my wife. The post identified him as Mark Jensen, a known troublemaker, and surprisingly, he worked as a security guard at a nearby factory. The irony was almost comical, sickeningly so. A man who was supposed to protect, a man who had violated. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Here he was, the man who had torn our lives apart, identified and within reach. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have gone to the police again, risking the chance that he might slip through their fingers? Or would you have sought your own brand of justice? What would be your first move? I stared at the photo of Mark Jensen for a long time, the anger a hot, throbbing pulse in my temples. Going to the police felt like a dead end. They had failed us before, and I had no faith they would act decisively now, especially with circumstantial evidence. I needed something irrefutable, something that would not only expose him but utterly destroy his life, just as he had nearly destroyed Sarah's. I started digging deeper into Mark Jensen's life. With my tech skills, it wasn't hard to find out a disturbing amount of information. He had a history of minor offenses, assault charges that were always dropped, and a pattern of harassing women. He was a predator, enabled by a system that seemed unwilling or unable to stop him. I found his home address, his work schedule, even his favorite hangouts. I became a shadow, observing him, learning his routines. My plan began to form meticulously, coldly, fueled by a desire for vengeance that bordered on obsession. I decided not to confront him physically. That would be too easy, too predictable, and would only lead to legal trouble for me. No, I wanted a different kind of revenge, a public, inescapable humiliation that would make his life a living nightmare. I wanted the world to know what he was, and for him to face the consequences not just from the law, but from society itself. I spent weeks preparing. I set up hidden cameras near his workplace and outside his apartment, capturing his daily life, his interactions, anything that could build a damning case against him. I even managed to rig a tiny camera onto his car, recording his movements, his reckless driving, his aggressive behavior towards other drivers. I wanted to paint a complete picture of his character, or lack thereof. The turning point came one afternoon when I saw him harassing a young woman at a bus stop, just as he had harassed Sarah. He cornered her, whispering something I couldn't hear, his body language aggressive and intimidating. The woman was clearly uncomfortable, trying to avoid him. My blood boiled. This was it. I activated my phone's recording feature, carefully capturing the entire interaction. I zoomed in on his face, then on the swirling tattoo on his forearm, a clear, undeniable link. I had him. This video, combined with the enhanced school security footage and Sarah's testimony, would be irrefutable. But I wasn't just going to the police with it. I had a bigger plan. I compiled all the evidence, the enhanced school footage, the video of him harassing the woman, a detailed timeline of his known offenses, and Sarah's powerful, emotional account, recorded privately. I created a meticulously edited video, interweaving the images and videos with Sarah's raw, tearful narration. I focused on the specific moment he touched her, the fear in her eyes, juxtaposed with the calm, predatory look on his face in my captured footage. I added text overlays explaining his history, his identity, and the systemic failures that allowed him to continue his behavior. I called it "Touch My Wife, You're Dead, the Predator Among Us." It was harsh, provocative, designed to grab attention. Then I uploaded it to a newly created YouTube channel, completely anonymous. I shared the link on every social media platform, every local community group, every news outlet I could find. I sent it to journalists, true crime enthusiasts, and online activists. I didn't just want it to go viral, I wanted it to explode. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, the video had thousands of views. Within a day, it had millions. The comments section erupted with outrage, support, and shared stories of similar experiences. People started recognizing Mark Jensen from the video, posting his full name, his workplace, screenshots of his social media profiles. The internet, with its unforgiving swiftness, began its own form of justice. His name and face became synonymous with predatory behavior. His employer, flooded with calls and emails from outraged viewers, fired him within 24 hours. His social media accounts were taken down, his personal information exposed. He couldn't go anywhere without being recognized, without facing the glares and whispers of strangers. People started showing up at his apartment building, protesting, demanding his arrest. The local news picked up the story, then national news, then international. "Revenge goes viral" became the headline. The police, now under immense public pressure, had no choice but to act. With the overwhelming evidence I had provided, combined with the public outcry, they finally had enough to arrest him. He was charged with assault, harassment, and a host of other offenses. The wheels of justice, finally, began to turn, albeit with a forceful shove from the internet. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Sarah and I were interviewed by countless media outlets, sharing our story not just for ourselves, but for every victim who felt silenced. Sarah, though still healing, found strength in the outpouring of support, knowing that her experience was helping others. Mark Jensen, stripped of his anonymity and his freedom, faced the full brunt of his crimes. He was convicted, not just for what he did to Sarah, but for his pattern of abusive behavior that the viral video had brought to light. He received a hefty prison sentence, a fate he absolutely deserved. The world watched as a man's life was dismantled, not just by the legal system, but by the collective power of the internet, ignited by a husband's desperate act of love and defiance. Was it extreme? Perhaps. Did I take matters into my own hands? Absolutely. But I have no regrets. I protected my wife, and I exposed a monster who thought he could hide in the shadows. The experience changed us, deepened our bond, and made us realize the importance of standing up for what's right, even when it feels like you're alone against the world. So, that's my story. It was a terrifying, grueling, but ultimately vindicating journey. If you were on my side, if you believe that some lines should never be crossed, and that some actions demand an unequivocal response, then please, like this video. Subscribe for more stories like this, where ordinary people face extraordinary challenges and find their own paths to justice. And most importantly, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I want to hear what you truly think. I'll see you all in the next story.